We've recently adopted new behaviors that are based more on passion instead of logic and intellect, gotten the courage to do these behaviors more regularly, and begun to take a big leap of faith to pursue them more fully. That is a great thing. However, we are struggling to fully keep the faith after these actions have been taken, go with the flow of them, and trust that they will work out. Instead, we are falling back into doubt, insecurity, worry, control, pragmatism, and overthinking because that feels safer than the others, which may make us want to shut down and stop moving forward in this different way. In addition, unexpected ideas, insights, or news may come up that feel scary, disappointing, and overwhelming, also challenging our ability to stay in faith and triggering some fear and anxiety. As a result, we must learn at this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo, of which this video is for, to refuse to get sucked into logic, control, and worry. Instead, we must learn to stay in faith, trust, flow, and surrender no matter what it takes. It may feel hard at first, but continuing with these new behaviors and trusting they will work is key to finally changing our life for the better since 2020, which can finally occur in very significant ways over the course of the next few weeks. Hi, I'm your astrologer, Brittany of Ethereal Astrology. Today, you're watching your astrology horoscope for the collective for the new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Virgo, which occurs on Sunday, September 21st, 2025 at 3:54 p.m. Eastern Time or 12:54 p.m. Pacific Time, depending, of course, on which part of the world that it is that you live in. Now, before I hop into the horoscope for today, what I do want to do first is to just mention these bracelets again by the Otter Spirit. They're authentic AAA grade gemstones by a company called the Otter Spirit based in Monterey Bay, California, which is the home of the sea otters. And with the purchase of every one of these bracelets, they give $1 back to the sea otters to protect them. I've mentioned these before, these bracelets, on my channel, but I love these bracelets so much that I made a deal with them to work with them longer. So you're going to hear me more over the course of the next few months talk about these bracelets, and of course my discount codes will still be active as well. But I love these. They don't just do bracelets, they also do, I think, rings and necklaces and some other things, but I personally just love the bracelets the best. What I have today, a purple moment. Maybe I should start there. I love these bracelets because I love color, gemstones, and symbolism, and these do all three. And today we're going with purple. I've got an amethyst. I'll try to get a little closer. This one's amethyst here in the middle. This one's lepidolite. And then I've got the Botswana agate. Here now, the Botswana agate is a special one. They have certain gemstones that are for a limited time only. So that one they'll have just for a month, and then that one will go away and they'll get another one. But of course, the amethyst is a very popular stone, so they'll always have that one there. And then there's the lepidolite. I got these because, of course, I love pastels. If you've been following me for a long time, you know that's like all I wear. And so purple's one of my favorite. I also really like the amethyst and the lepidolite. The purple stones are right connected to your intuition and the third eye, the crown chakra. So I got that because that's what we do here on this channel is we talk about spiritual things that might be associated more with the intuition. So it got it to help me with that. Of course, the amethyst, especially the lepidolite too, also can help a lot with just emotions, nurturing your emotions, helping you work through some things. So I like that as well. To be honest, I'm not feeling super sharp mentally today. So working with the emotions today, especially I need to note surrounding my courses. I'm planning on launching like my first, or releasing, whatever you want to call it, my first astrology courses in the next few weeks, and some other things. And I have to say it is a little scary. It's a little scary anticipating that and what that might be like, how they might do, what you all might say. So we're working with some of the emotions today to really help us with some of that. And then the Botswana agate is supposed to bring courage and strength, especially in times of transition. So hoping that will help as well. So these are the ones that we have today. I'm super excited. They feel really nice. And that's why I was surprised when I first received the bracelets from Otter Spirit. They actually feel really nice in your hand and on your wrist. They do feel high quality. I mean, they're AAA grade gemstones. They're authentic, so they do feel really quality as well, which is nice. And I know I'm going to have to get you a close up soon, but you can see the variations and the stones as well, so that makes it very nice too. But I love these. Great to just look nice, dress yourself up, and also to help with, some emotional or spiritual things that you might need help with. So highly recommend that. They do come with a little note about each of the stones, what they're for and how they work. So you'll also get that. And I've got some discount codes for you. I've got the same one I used in the other video I gave you. It's Brittany 20, and that's my name, Brittany 20, and that's going to give you 20% off any order on their website, otterspirit.com, which I'll link down below in the description. And then I've got another discount code for you, and that's Brittany 30, Brittany 30, and that's going to give you 30% off orders of $99 or more. So please go ahead and check those out because I'm obsessed and we'll be talking about them a lot more. But all right, let's go ahead and let's hop into today. And to get into the horoscope for today, what I want to do first is to place on the chart what it is that I'm referring to in this horoscope so that you can follow along with me and then give you some main themes of what we might be experiencing. So let's do that. This video is for the new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. Because of that, I've adjusted my chart accordingly for that lunar event. I know that it's for that because I've got the sun and the moon here making a conjunction, which means they're at the same place of the same sign. And that is what is considered a new moon when that occurs, of course, in the sign of Virgo, because that's where they both are. And I know that it's an eclipse because it's close-ish to the nodal axis, in this case, the south node. And when you have either a new moon or a full moon near the nodal axis, that is what makes an eclipse, because the nodal axis is the point in space at which eclipses occur. So this is what we're looking at, a new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. Okay, now what is this about in terms of the main themes? Well, new moons are the beginning of a new lunar month or a new lunar cycle. And because of that, they're all about new beginnings, new energy, and fresh starts to either start something new or do something in a new and different way. Not only that, but it is an eclipse. Eclipse is superpower, the new moon energy to make it extra significant. So to have extra big impact in your life and maybe even to last a little longer as well than otherwise. Usually eclipses are felt most intensely within the 6 months after they occur until the next eclipses happen. Although I could make an argument that they last 9 years till the eclipse is in the opposite sign, but that's neither here or there for now. They just are going to superpower some new beginning, new energy and fresh start that it is that we're trying to get. Not only that, but I also do need to note that this eclipse in Virgo is on the south node as opposed to the north node, which does make a difference. Which node it's on as well. And it makes a difference because the south node in particular does tend to be, I think, in my opinion, a little more challenging than the north node. The south node tends to be a bit more challenging on the north node because the south node tends to indicate things we've been doing for a while that are no longer useful for us anymore in order for us to grow and evolve, that we're going to need to let go of or release, but that's really hard to let go of and really hard to release. That can make us feel a little bit stuck because it's hard to let go of things you've been doing for a while. So this, to bring that together, this is a beginning, a new beginning or a fresh start in a very significant way to really release something or to end, you kind of like, ironic maybe in a way, being a new moon, to kind of release or end something that is no longer working for us or no longer going to work after this point, or to significantly kind of change the way we've been doing something prior to this point to do it in a significantly different way after this. And now, what is it that we are really needing to change or get a different approach in, which maybe I should note before I go a step further. This is happening at 29 degrees. Do you see it? The very last degree of the sign of Virgo. I should also note as well, that's also going to superpower this and make this a very significant new moon eclipse as well, because the 29th degree does tend to be a very intense degree. And maybe I should also note too that this can also increase some of the challenges as well. Because the 29th degree can be an intense degree that can bring challenges too. And that's also because the 29th degree is a degree of mastery. It really wants us to master something or to do something in a more masterful or correct, proper way that's going to be best for our situation. And achieving mastery usually isn't easy. It comes as a result of experience, trials, and tests, which can come up, some kind of test, usually with the 29th degree, to challenge you as well. So there's something about this that this eclipse that's more challenging, especially compared to the last one we just had 2 weeks ago, in the sign of Pisces. Okay, what is it now? To go back to that, what is it that we're getting kind of a big new energy to release, to let go of, to change or do differently, which can feel difficult and bring some intense tests or challenges with it? Well, that's going to be Virgo, okay, because that's where all of these things are that's taking place. What is Virgo about? Well, Virgo is a Mercury-ruled sign. Mercury-ruled signs typically have to do with our mind and our thoughts and the way that it is that we're thinking. And usually in Virgo, with Virgo being an earth sign, the thoughts are more pragmatic, more realistic, more focused on like I don't know if this is the right way, reality, like things that are more practical, as opposed to maybe that are more intuitive or emotional. So there's something about Virgo that is very intellectual, very logical, very in the mind, very practical. And remember, because this eclipse is on the South Node, we're trying to let go of that, to let go of the mind, to let go of the logic, to let go of being pragmatic or overly pragmatic, which sometimes happens when you get the South Node can bring too much of one thing, to try to let go of that, or to do our thoughts and our logic and our pragmatism in a very different way, that will allow us to move forward better. So that's a big theme that's coming up. Not only that, but I also need to note as well that because Virgo is a Mercury-ruled sign and has to do with our thoughts, and it's Earth Mercury, it also tends to do with planning things, or strategizing, or to-do lists. Like, to me, that's a Virgo thing as well. And I think we're also, again, with this being on the South Node, trying to let go of that, let go of this need to plan or over-plan our situation, to always have a plan or a 5-year plan or a day plan, 24-hour plan, to let go of this always needing to plan and to strategize, or to always have to know logically, consciously what's going on and what's happening, or to let go of the need to over control. Because a lot of times when we make strategies and plans, we're making strategies and plans because we don't trust the situation. We're trying to control it, especially when you have the South Node there. That's another thing that we need to let go of or do very differently, which can be hard and challenging at this eclipse in Virgo. Let go of the logical mind, being too pragmatic, too intellectual, too in the head, too realistic, and letting go of needing to constantly control your situation or always know what's going to happen, and to let go of the planning and the structuring and always having that and the answers figured out. And not only that, but I also need to note too that Virgo is also as well about our routines, which are the things that we do day in and day out in our lives. which kind of also has to do with a plan as well, and which can keep us very busy. Virgo can be a sign of being very busy, got a lot of stuff to do, that we're thinking about, that we're working on. And that's another thing, especially with this being near the South Node, that we need to let go of. We need to let go of constantly always having to be busy, always having to do stuff, always having to work hard, or always be just doing things that it is that is going on. So we need to kind of let go of the busy work as well. Not only that, but I also need to note too that Virgo also has to do with work and with our job, like our job proper, that we might have, because your job is a routine, right? What you do for a job, you usually do every day or most days. And this can also indicate too a significant need for a lot of people to let go of a job that you've been doing that is no longer working for you, which can mean to quit that job or to do another job. There's something there with the job for a lot of you that might also need to be changed. Not only that, but other things that I should note too is that Virgo also, in some ways to me, because it's a little bit of a mental sign and it likes to plan and to know what's going to happen, can also lead towards worry and can lead toward anxiety. Maybe even can lead a little towards being critical, because it's so detail-oriented, Virgo, critical of ourselves and others. So that's another thing that we need to let go of, is this need to always focus on the details or to be critical or worrying about our situation. Not only that, but maybe the last thing that I'll note is that Virgo is also the sign of health and of the health of our body, right? So what this could also mean as well is that at this eclipse, we might have to adjust our relationship with our body or with our health, or make changes to our health, or let go of certain routines with our health to maybe try other things with the health that might be a little bit better as well. Not only do I want to note that about this eclipse in Virgo, but I also want to note as well what we're moving towards, right? Because we talked about how this eclipse is on the South Node. The South Node is about things that we really need to release, let go of, or do differently. Well, what is it that we need to move towards and do more of? Okay, well, that's going to be where the North Node is, which is exactly opposite of the South Node, because they're connected, right? And the nodes are what make an eclipse is in Pisces. Okay, the North Node, again, is about what we need to move more towards. Pisces is the exact opposite of everything we just talked about, because it's the opposite sign of Virgo. So Pisces is not about being logical. It's not about being pragmatic. It's not about being rational. It's not about thinking or overthinking things. It's about our emotions, being a water sign. It's about our intuition. It's about faith in a higher power, things that we can't see, things that we don't understand. It's about trusting more in that and honoring more of those things. Pisces is also not about controlling things. It's a water sign. Water, you can't really contain. Water's not always the easiest to contain. It flows. It's not about overly controlling and planning our situation. It's about being okay with the unknown and going with the flow. Not only that, but Pisces is not about work. It's not about routine. It's not about staying busy. It's about resting. A lot of times Pisces is the sign of sleep and dreams. It's about resting. It's about taking it easy. It's about doing less work instead of doing more, so taking time to yourself to rest and be at ease. It also too is about creative projects, or what's, within your emotions, right? Doing more of that. And can also too be about, right, your inner world, your emotional health, and focusing on some of those things too. So that's what it is that we're moving towards. And you can kind of see, you can kind of think of it in a more like abstract kind of sense of like, we have to move away from thoughts, worries, plans to trust, faith, emotion, intuition, rest, and ease. But you can also see it as well in more of a specific way. Some of you are maybe leaving jobs at this time, or need to over the course of the next few months, to leave jobs to just chill, to just to just rest, to be at ease, to deal with some emotional things and to honor those, or maybe leaving jobs to do um, other things that you might be more emotional, right? Might be more in touch with your emotions. So having different jobs that are more emotional in nature or spiritual in nature or creative in nature. So it could be some of that, or just give you more time off, some of that sort. And this could also be with the health. Maybe some of you are changing your health regimen to focus more on holistic. Sometimes I think Pisces will go more holistic health, but also to changing some of your health to, instead of focusing on the health of your physical body, to instead focus on your mental health, because they're connected. And a lot of the root causes of a lot of challenges going on with your body at this time may actually be connected to a lot of emotional things from the past that may not have been, that may need to be resolved still. So it may also bring that switch of like, okay, I've tried everything I can with my physical health. Now I need to switch to my emotional health to work through that. And the emotional health really being the solution to help finish the physical healing. So can also bring some things like that as well. To look out for. Okay, so I think that's all I'm going to say now for the main themes of this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo. We're trying to get like a big boost and a fresh start to let go of in a very significant way, which may feel challenging, overthinking, being too pragmatic and logical and realistic, to let go of worry, anxiety, to let go of constantly having to know what's going on and plan and control, and of always having to stay busy in work and routines. We're letting go of all of that big, significant way. May feel challenging in order to go in an opposite direction, and in order to embrace more emotion, intuition, trusting the unseen, having more faith, flow, rest, and ease, and all of that here to really help us move forward in a better way. Now, before I go more into the specifics now about this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo and how it's going to play out, I do now like to go back in time for a little bit before I move forward to give you more of the context of how we got here, because I do believe that the context can actually change a lot in my interpretations, because there's a new moon in Virgo every year. Now, granted, there's not a solar eclipse in Virgo every year. That's a bit more rare, but there's a new moon in every sign every year. I think it's the other alignments around it that really can make most of the difference. So I'm going to go back to talk about some of those in the past. If you're not interested in that or don't want to hear it, totally fine. Not a big deal. I've got the timestamps down below in the description box for you so that you can easily navigate and skip ahead to the point in the video where I do talk about this eclipse specifically. But for now, I'm going to go back in time. I'm going to go back briefly to an alignment that happened somewhere between January to April of 2020. I'm going to go back there because we had a very rare, challenging, and significant alignment that doesn't happen that often at that time. And that was Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn in the South Node, all coming conjunct to the middle to late degrees of Capricorn. Okay. This is a rare alignment because Saturn and Pluto only come conjunct about every 35 years, not in the same sign, okay, and not always with the South Node and Jupiter there, which makes it even more rare than that. This also is a challenge because Saturn and Pluto are typically considered to be malefic planets, and the South Node was there, which is where the eclipse is now. And the South Node tends to be a little bit harder as well about things we need to let go of. And Jupiter was in a Capricorn, a sign it doesn't like to be in. So this was kind of a rare challenge occurring at this time. What was the rare challenge that occurred at the beginning of 2020? Well, I think what happened then is that we started to feel stuck in our lives. Saturn can be a symbol of stuckness. We started to feel stuck in our lives, and when it comes to the life direction, Capricorn has to do with the life direction. And like, we did not like the direction that our life was going in any longer. I think we started to feel stuck when it came to the direction of our lives and where it was going, because either just the past years, maybe the past 35 years, because that's how long it takes this alignment to happen, we didn't like any of it. Just whatever had happened during that time period, just none of it was good. But another reason why we could have felt stuck and unhappy with our lives at that time is also because we could have just outgrown it. We liked our life at one point over the course of the past, few decades, but we grow, we change. We've now outgrown that, and we want different things that we don't have. So I believe it was us starting to feel that way. Not only was it starting for us to feel stuck, but it was also about us realizing that we needed to make a very big Jupiter, a very big planet change and transformation, Pluto, which is usually endings first, endings to get rid of a lot of the things that were making us feel stuck, right? And to let go of it, the South Node, which was hard. It's hard to let go of things, South Node, right? Where the eclipse is now, on the South Node, it's hard to let go of things that you've been doing for a very, very long time. But that needed to happen then, that we started the process of. So that was 2020. Realized I'm stuck in my life. I don't like the direction it's going in, because either I never did or I've just outgrown the way it is, and I want different things now. And that the only way I'm going to get to a different and better experience of life is if I end and let go of a lot of things that I don't like now, which may have felt very hard that we then started. And I think actually took us many years to do in various ways. That then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention, which occurred this year. And that's going to be around April of this year, 2025, which was a new moon solar eclipse in Aries, somewhere around here. Okay. I want to fast forward to that time period just for the sake of shortening this section, because it's gotten kind of long if I mention all those other years. I also want to fast forward to April of 2025, because that is the beginning of the astrological year, Aries season, which is the year we're still on now, that we're still a part of. So that's a good starting place. I also want to start there as well, because that we had an eclipse at that time in that sign, and eclipses are also very big deals too. So we're going to look at that. What is that about? New moons are about new beginnings, new energy, and fresh starts. Solar eclipses are going to superpower that. It's in Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. The first sign of the zodiac is also about new beginnings and fresh starts, say like starting a new chapter of life. Not only that, Aries is about our identity, so trying to identify with new experiences. Aries too is also a Mars ruled sign, which is also about our actions and behaviors as well. So trying to act and behave in very different ways. And that's key, because in order to get a new experience of life, or to be different, which is really what we've been trying to do since 2020, we need to behave differently. Okay. New experience of life don't just happen because we're lucky. They happen because we're doing things differently than we were before. And what were these different behaviors that we were trying to adopt at that time? Well, I think they were more Aries behaviors, because that's, of course, where the eclipse was. And Aries is a fire sign. It's more about passion and instinct, not about logic, right? Not about pragmatism. It's about following your passion, which is an emotion, and your instinct, and moving forward on that. Not only that, but Aries, again, to me, is also too about our own self as individuals and what we feel more excited about too. So it's also about us adopting new behaviors that not only are more passionate and based on instinct, but also behaviors that are based more on what we as individuals are interested in, not what we think we should be interested in, not what society tells us we should be interested in, but what we as individuals really value and are really excited about, which I need to note is important, because to put it into context with the 2020 situation with all the stuff in Capricorn, the way we had been acting prior to this point, prior to April of this year, was in a Capricorn way. And Capricorn, because that's where Pluto had been for many years, and Capricorn is very structured. It is very practical. It's more traditional. It's more based on what will be the most respectable, what other people think. And that's what created a lot of the problems that we didn't like, that we needed to get out of. So this eclipse in April of this year is extremely important, because it's trying to finally get us into a new experience of life after ending things in the 5 years prior. And the only way to get to a new experience of life after 2020 that we didn't like is to do things in a very different way than we were doing them before. And that different way to do them is based on passion and emotion and our individual desires instead of logic, responsibility, tradition, or what we think we should be doing. Okay. Because those passionate behaviors are going to get us into different experience because we weren't doing them before. Right. And that's what makes them new and different and all of that. And they're more in alignment with us. Okay, that then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the new moons and some of the full moons since April of 2025. And that next new moon was about a month later in the next sign over of Taurus around May of this year, 2025. New moons are about new beginnings. Taurus is the second sign of the zodiac. It's a fixed sign. It's a lot about sustaining something that we previously started so that we can get more confident in it and more secure in it as well. And what we're trying to sustain were those new behaviors that I just talked about that are based more on passion and instinct and on our own individual desires. So I want to note as well that because Taurus is fixed earth, it is a little bit of a slower sign. We could have felt like things were either just slow at that time, slow at that time. We could have felt like things were slow because we needed to slow down in order to really stay fixed in these new behaviors. But we could have also felt like things were going slow at that time as well, because these new behaviors are having us do less. When you're doing what you're excited about, when you're not doing all this other busy work, it feels like you're doing less. And when you're doing less, sometimes things can feel slower. So there was an element of that there too. That then leads me now to the next new moon, which was the next month, June, over in the next sign of Gemini, June of this year, 2025. New moons are about new beginnings. Gemini is a lot about adapting to things and making things more familiar, being a mutable sign. It's also too about adjusting our mindset, being Mercury ruled. So I think what happened in June of this year is that not only did we get new behaviors, passionate, instinct, individual, and sustain those behaviors, but it was also about us trying to adjust our mindset more to these different behaviors and adapt to them a little bit more and be a little more loose and flexible with these new behaviors so that we could integrate them into even more a part of our life. And that then leads me now to the next alignment, which was the new moon, the next new moon, a month later, somewhere around July of this year, 2025, and that next sign over of Cancer, which, by the way, was conjunct Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, which is in its sign of exaltation. That, to me, was a good new moon. New moons are about new beginnings. Cancer is really about our foundations in life and our foundation within ourselves, giving something a stronger foundation or a stronghold or grounding something. It's also too about our emotions and adjusting those. It was conjunct Jupiter, which is also about our belief systems too. And what I think July of 2025, that new moon in Cancer was about, was not only about us getting new behaviors, sustaining them and adapting to them and getting more used to them, but also about us really trying to believe in them more fully and emotionally connect with these new behaviors and to feel stronger, a bit more stronger and more grounded with these new behaviors so that they became more a part of ourselves. That then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention. I'm now going to switch to a full moon, which happened about 2 weeks after that new moon in Cancer, somewhere around July of this year, 2025. That was in Capricorn, where the Saturn, Pluto, South Node, Jupiter conjunction was in 2020. Full moons are really about stepping into things more fully or bringing them to completion. Capricorn is a very public sign. It's also, again, right where that stuff was in 2020. So I think what that was a few things. I think it was us trying to take these new behaviors and make them more public or to do them more publicly. With the passion and the excitement. And I think it also, too, was about these new behaviors we are doing more publicly, starting to complete, right? Full moons are complete the old chapter of life that we've been trying to escape, to help us close that out and start to see a little bit of different circumstances manifest more publicly in our situation. So that was us in July 2025 actually doing, right, these different behaviors and seeing them manifest in a more public way to help us move into a new experience without the old. That then leads me now to the next alignment, which was the next new moon, I think the next month, August of this year, 2025. And that was in Leo, new moon in Leo. Which, by the way, was around the same time that Mercury was going retrograde in Leo. New moons are about new beginnings. Leo is a lot about courage. being correlated to the lion. It's also about staying fixed in things as well, being a fixed sign. And with Mercury retrograde in that sign, it was us struggling to really do that, struggling to maintain the courage to continue with these new behaviors that we were now doing more publicly and starting to see change our life. We were struggling with that, maybe being a little cowardly, the cowardly lion, when it came to doing some of those things that may have made us feel stuck or stagnating with the Mercury retrograde, or like we're moving backwards and not able to move forward when we just were kind of maybe getting a little bit of momentum there. That was hard. That then leads me to the next. I'm going to go to the other full moon 2 weeks after that, August 2025, here in Aquarius. Full moons are about either stepping into things or completing things. Aquarius is a lot about detaching or letting things go. It's also too about kind of revolutionizing things and about the future. And it's also very solutions oriented as well. And so what I think happened at that full moon in Aquarius is that we started to kind of detach from some of the fear, right? Because we weren't having courage. We were detaching from some of the fear around the actions that we needed to take so that we could try to continue onwards with them, with these different behaviors that are more passionate, individual, and instinctual. Okay, so we conquered some of the fear and insecurity around that. That then leads me now to the next alignment, which was that next new moon in the next sign over in the sign of Virgo that we just had before this, somewhere around September of 2025. And new moons are about new beginnings. Virgo is about our habits and our routines. And that one was not an eclipse, keep in mind, and it was not on the South Node. So that was us needing to form a habit, needing to form a routine. And Virgo's not flashy. And it was us forming a habit or a routine with these behaviors that we had gotten more courage to do now, with the following behaviors that are passionate and based on instinct and more individual. It was us, now that we had found our courage again, continuing with those behaviors in a more regular and habitual basis, not in big, sweeping, crazy ways, just in a more regular basis so that we could kind of sustain them more. That then leads me to the next alignment I'm going to mention, which was the full moon after that, I think also somewhere in September 2025, that full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces that we just had 2 weeks ago, right around here. Full moons are about stepping into things we've been working towards for a while. It was an eclipse, going to superpower that. Pisces is a lot about our emotions, which is a big thing we're trying to do now, is like honor our emotions. And passion was about us stepping more fully into honoring our emotions. Pisces is also about faith, I think, and taking a leap of faith, say, on our emotions, because they don't make logical sense to do that, and taking a leap of faith with these new behaviors to do more of the passion and more of the instinct and more of that as well. That it is that we needed, because it's these behaviors and this leap of faith that's going to help us to release the past, because Pisces is also about the past and move forward. So that's what happened not too long ago, 2 weeks ago, is that we got the courage to continue onwards with these different behaviors and took a leap of faith with them to see, right, what it'll do with our lives or if it'll work. That then leads me now to this alignment, of which this video is for, the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo, here where it is in September of 2025. Their new moons, again, are about new beginnings. Eclipses superpower it, and it's on the South Node, about letting things go. And so this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo is a lot about letting go of the Virgo. And Virgo, as we discussed, was the overthinking, the overplanning, the overcontrolling our situation, the logic, and the pragmatism. And so now at this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo, we have to officially, once and for all, so to speak, let go of the logic, the pragmatism, the overwork, the overthinking, and anything in the way of these new behaviors based on passion and of this leap of faith that it is that we've just taken. Okay, and we need to let go of those, or at least change those habits significantly, because if we were to engage in the logic, in the over control, in the pragmatism, we're going to stifle these new behaviors that are based on passion and instinct and individuality. We're going to stifle these new behaviors and not go all in on them fully, and then we're going to stay stuck, because it's these new behaviors that are going to get us into a different experience. So now we need to let go of those things in order to move on. Okay, and that's it. That's it. Because that's it, I'm just going to repeat that briefly. What's happening at this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo is we're trying to adopt new behaviors based more on passion, instinct, and individuality instead of logic, pragmatism, control, tradition, and all of that. It's taken us a little bit to do, and we've kind of faltered a little bit, but we're starting to do this new behaviors more and more and see it work more and more to change our lives. And now at this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo, we need to more permanently let go of the old behaviors and the old mindset and anything in the way of these new behaviors that are based too much on logic and tradition and all of that. And that's it. Because that's it, I'm now gonna talk now more specifically about this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo and the aspects that it's making. And to do that, I'm going to place it on the chart one more time so we can see it. Here's the new moon solar eclipse in the sign of Virgo. And what is it that I want to look at first? I think what I want to look at first is going to be here Saturn, because this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo is making an opposition over to Saturn in Pisces. So let's look at this. Now I want to interpret this in both a neutral way and also a challenging way. I want to interpret it in somewhat of a neutral way because Saturn, to me isn't necessarily a horrible thing. To me, it does indicate just an area of life you really need to focus on to bring to mastery, especially with these things, the last degrees of the sign. So it doesn't have to be a bad thing, but I am also going to interpret it a little bit more in a challenging way as well, because traditionally Saturn is considered a malefic planet and an opposition is also hard too. So I'm going to give you both. What might it be to just interpret it in a neutral way? Well, again, Saturn can indicate an area of focus that we really need to focus on or master, especially with the last degrees. And Pisces is about faith, the act of faith, a leap of faith that I think we might have taken 2 weeks ago at the last eclipse, which was in this sign, or just faith in general, having more faith that things will work out. It's also too about trusting our emotions, being a water sign, or our intuition or spirit and a higher power. It's also too about going more with the flow, being a water sign symbolized by the fish. It's also about resting and being a little bit more at ease as well. So Saturn is really trying to get us to focus more on those things and to cultivate that more and more faith, more trust, or more acts of faith, more acts and leaps of faith in our situation, and more following our emotions and our intuition and trusting that it's going to be okay, and resting and being at ease instead of stressing ourselves out. Okay. But even though that's, I think, what we're trying to do and need to happen at this time, remember, it's still Saturn. It's an opposition. The eclipse is in a hard spot being conjunct the South Node. This is difficult. It's difficult for us to maintain and to stay in this place of faith, trust, emotion, intuition that we were just getting to 2 weeks ago at that last eclipse. It's really difficult for us to stay there. Not only is it difficult for us to stay there, and right, Saturn can bring restriction, but I think we're also getting stuck here in the Virgo, in that energy, which is opposite the faith and the trust that we need to be having. And we're getting stuck in the Virgo because, again, this is a solar eclipse on the South Node. The South Node tends to indicate things that we're stuck in. Okay. And the Virgo, again, is that pragmatism. It's that logic. It's that overthinking, the overworking, the constantly needing to know what's going to happen and control the situation and plan and always be busy. Okay. We're stuck in that, and that's taking us out of the faith and the ease and the trust and the intuition and taking these actions, these leaps of faith that it is that we need. That is hard. Not only that, I think that's going on. But it's bringing also a feeling of stuckness, right? I think I said that, or slowness, because the South Node does this. And it can also as well bring a sense of frustration too, of frustration that things are slow, frustration that things are stuck, or just a frustration of why things aren't working, why things aren't adjusting, with the mutable signs aren't adjusting in our lives in the way that it is that we might like as well. That's happening. Not only do I want to note that this is us not being able to have as much of the faith that it is that we need and the trust, because we're too stuck in the logic and the overthinking and the pragmatism and the busy work, which is making us feel like our life's not going where we want it to go, which can be making us frustrated and can be making us agitated and feel really held back. But I also want to note too that the reason why, sometimes it helps to know why, the reason why we're falling back into these habits is because they feel safer. And that's part of what the South Node does. We tend to stay in the South Node, to stay stuck there because it feels safe. It feels more comfortable. You know, having trust and faith is scary. It's the unknown. That's the North Node, is kind of the unknown. So I think the reason why we're staying stuck in some of these habits, right? It's not because we're bad people. It's not because we don't know what's going on. It's because it feels safer to overthink your situation. It feels safer to do what's logical and what's practical instead of go with the flow, instead of act on a whim, you know, that is keeping us there at this time. That can be a bit hard. Okay. Not only do I want to note that about the new moon, right? The sun and the moon here in the South Node. But again, the South Node is about us trying to release and trying to let go of these things too. So I think it's kind of twofold. We're not only at this eclipse in Virgo, are we struggling to maintain the hope and the faith and the going with the flow and these different behaviors that it is that we need, because we're stuck in the fear and, well, we're stuck in the overthinking and the over planning and the over controlling and all of that, because it feels safer, right? Which I guess you could say is afraid, because we're afraid of the other stuff and this feels safer. But I think there's also an awareness too that maybe that's not what we should be doing. There's an awareness, because Virgo can be very sharp mentally. It can also bring an awareness too of like, I don't want to be stuck anymore, and I don't want to be overly logical either. And it can start to bring an awareness that even though we're stuck in it, it's not good for our situation, and that maybe we need to let it go. So it can kind of bring both at the same time, and us trying to let it go as well, which is not going to be the easiest with the eclipse. And of course, with the Virgo at the last, with these planets at the last degree of Virgo, which can really intensify that challenge as well. So that's, I think, one of the first few things that I want to say about this solar eclipse in Virgo is that, yeah, we're trying to remain in a place of faith, or in a place of continuing to take leaps of faith and to just trust that everything will work out, and to honor our emotions and our passions and to be in flow. But we're really struggling to do it because we're still stuck in overthinking, over controlling our situation, always having to know what's going to happen and when, over planning, worry and anxiety, really because we're afraid to go in this other direction, and because it feels safer. Okay. And even, which is making us feel very frustrated and like our situation isn't maneuvering in the way we need to be. Okay. But even though we're stuck because of these behaviors, we're starting to realize that these behaviors are the problem, that the logic is the problem, the over controlling is the problem, and that we need to start to get rid of those things or change those behaviors fundamentally, which may not be easy. Okay, that then leads me now. The next thing I want to mention here, which is going to be opposite Neptune, because not only is this new moon in Virgo opposite Saturn, it's also opposite Neptune as well, even though it's slightly out of sign, but we're going to talk about that too. This is another difficult aspect because it's an opposition, which is hard. Neptune's also an outer planet, so this can create some challenges too. What is the difficulty? Well, Neptune, which is correlated to Pisces, but Neptune is a lot about releasing things. It's a lot about letting things go. And it's in Aries. Aries is a lot about our identity. It's also too about our behaviors. I think this can be the old behaviors, letting go of old behaviors. It can also be too about surrendering to new behaviors with the Neptune. Not only that, but Aries as well is about our identity as well. And I think that it can bring struggles with that. And Neptune, when negative, can bring confusion around that, or just feeling disoriented. Or maybe sometimes Neptune can bring a feeling of like just being lost, or, you know, sad, or kind of out to drift. And I think we're feeling confused, lost, and sad about who we are without the overthinking, right? Because it all comes back to the Virgo, especially because that's where it's connected to, is the new moon and making that opposition. So it can make us feel out to drift, where we're saying to ourselves, like, okay, even if I got rid of the logic and the intellect and the over planning and thinking and constantly having to know and all of that about my situation, even if I got rid of that, then what? Then what? A big unknown. Neptune can bring that. Then what? Then who am I? Then how do I act? It's just a big kind of nothingness, right? And that's kind of the way Pisces is, right? What is faith? What is just trusting that things are going to work out? There can bring a lot of confusion. Who am I after this? How do I behave after this? Maybe not feeling like there's any answers. Like it's just a great unknown that also is scary, making it feel like there's kind of no easy way out of this situation. There's no easy way out, of it. Either you have faith and trust and do something very scary, which doesn't make any logical sense, or you over plan and overthink and overwork, which also isn't working for your situation either. So it can bring feelings of that there too. That's hard. So do you see trying to let go and have faith and trust and take more leaps of faith than we were before 2 weeks ago, but struggling to stay in that place of faith and do that because we still are stuck in logic and pragmatism and overthinking and worry and all of that based on fear because it feels safer, and keeping us stuck and making us very frustrated and not moving and adjusting in the way we want. And from that stuckness, starting to realize, hey, it's the logic that's the problem. It's the pragmatism that's the problem. I need to let go of it, but then struggling still to let go of it because there's a big unknown that's going to happen after we let go of it that we have to dive into, that's going to bring a lot of confusion about who we are, that feels disorienting or sad. That's a challenge. Hey, that then leads me now to the next alignment I want to mention, which is going to be to Venus. Venus in Virgo is making a square to Uranus and Gemini at the same time of this eclipse. And I need to note the new moon in Virgo is also trining the Uranus as well. So there's a lot of Uranus going on, really, no matter which way you look at it. But we're going to talk here about the Venus square Uranus. Now, this to me is also a challenge. This to me is a challenge because it's a square, which is a hard aspect. And also too, because Venus is in Virgo, a sign it does not like to be in and therefore does not function that well in. All planets like signs better than others, and Venus just happens to not really like Virgo now. So this is also a challenge. What is the difficulty here? Well, Uranus is about the sudden and the unexpected. This can be an event that comes up. It feels a little bit more like an idea, but it can, because it's in Gemini and Venus is in Virgo, Mercury ruled, but could be either. But it could be something sudden, unexpected, an idea, event, a news, a thought, a conversation that comes up out of the blue. That's the nature of Uranus, that can feel shocking with the square, that is uncomfortable in some way, shape, or form. Maybe the unexpected news in and of itself is challenging. Or if the unexpected news in and of itself isn't challenging, maybe it's just so different, right, from what you're used to that it feels uncomfortable. So it's going to play out in a lot of different ways, but it's something unexpected coming up that for whatever reason feels uncomfortable or feels challenging. I should note it could also have to do with relationships and money, because Venus is involved in this situation now, and Venus is the planet of relationships and money. Not only can it bring an unexpected, challenging thought or idea up, especially as it pertains to relationships and money or news that could feel hard, but remember, it's Venus in Virgo where it doesn't like to be. And this can throw us back into, maybe I should say this can make things very chaotic, because Uranus can do that, bring a lot of chaos. But the Venus in Virgo can throw us back into the overthinking or the overplanning or the too much trying to control the situation and too much in the intellect, because Venus is a planet of beauty and ease, but Virgo is a sign of hard work and effort. So they're incompatible, which is why Venus doesn't like to be there. So it's hard to rest and be at ease and to trust the situation, because we're stressing out again about everything that's happening. And it could throw us back into a need to over control our situation to try to get on top of the unexpected event, because we feel like this is what we should do or the best way to do it, and kind of get us back into these habits and behaviors that we're trying to escape. So there's also that's happening as well at this solar eclipse in Virgo, is that, we're trying to have hope and faith that everything in our life is going to get better and take some more leaps of faith than we already took, and to honor more of our emotions and our intuition and the unseen. But we're struggling to go fully in on that or to do more of that because our logical mind is in the way. We're being too overly logical, practical, realistic, over controlling the situation that's going on. That's really what's keeping us stuck and holding us back from moving forward and making us not feel like where we want to be. And from that stuckness, I think we start to realize that, hey, it's the logic that's the problem. It's the pragmatism that's the problem, that we need to let that go and go more towards the faith in order to create the movement that it is that we need. But fully releasing these behaviors, even though we know we need to, is a very different thing, right? Knowing you need to do something and actually doing it is a very different thing. Actually releasing the overthinking and the pragmatism and the logic is very difficult because it leaves a lot of confusion about who we are after that point and what we do. And because unexpected news, events, challenges with relationships and money are coming up, throwing us for a loop and throwing us back into these old habits on top of everything, making us more scared and more afraid into the over control and taking us further away from the trust and the hope and the faith. Okay. That then leads me now to the next alignment I'm going to mention, which is going to be Mars. Mars is in Libra, also at the last degree, and a lot of things at the last degree here, which is not an easy degree, making an opposition over to Chiron in the sign of Aries. This is also a challenging thing because it's an opposition, a hard aspect. Chiron's there, tends to indicate difficulties, and Mars is in Libra, a sign it doesn't like to be in, just like Venus doesn't like to be in Virgo. So we've got two planets here in signs they don't like to be in, which makes things a little more difficult as well. What is the difficult thing going on? Well, Mars is about action. It's about taking action. Mars also correlates to Aries, where we had that solar eclipse at the beginning of the year, which is about taking action in a more Aries way, a more fiery way, a more passionate way, which is an emotion, which is based on instinct, which may not make logical sense. And with Mars in Libra, a sign it doesn't like to be in, we're having trouble fully doing that, fully taking action, doing things that it is that we need. Libra sometimes too can hesitate. It can hesitate. It can hold back from doing things because it wants to think more things through, with it being an air sign, weigh more things out. That can be hard, making us feel Chiron triggered, vulnerable, adding insult to injury, sad, can bring a lot of uncomfortable feelings and emotions, maybe even can bring some sort of anger that can be hard to be expressed because Mars is about anger. So is Aries. The last degree isn't always the best either. With the 29, bringing some anger that could be really hard to express and making us feel like, we're not in a new experience. Because remember, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac about new experiences. So making us feel like we're still not there yet in that new experience that we want to be in, that can be very, very hard. So just still not fully doing these new behaviors, or if we were doing these new behaviors, like it is falling backwards again, which is hard. Okay, so that's where we're at. This new moon solar eclipse in Virgo, trying to sustain a place of faith and hope and trust that everything's going to be okay, and acts of faith based on emotion and intuition and a whim, and really struggling to do that, to still believe and to still have faith and to still take acts of faith because we're feeling like it doesn't make logical sense. And because we're getting too much in our mind and trying to be too pragmatic and realistic and over control or plan and do too much in the situation, that's making us feel frustrated and stuck because that's not what's going to fix our situation and what our situation needs. And because we're feeling frustrated and stuck because of the logic, we're starting to gradually come around to the fact that the over control and the over planning and over logic is the problem. Okay. And that we need to release that, but actually releasing the thing is not as easy as it seems. It's not as easy as it appears to be, because it leaves a lot of confusion about who we're going to be after this point and leaves us kind of in the lurch. And because unexpected news, events, thoughts, and ideas may also be coming up, startling us, scaring us, and throwing us even more back into these old behaviors that could be exacerbating more of our challenges and making us feel even more stuck and frustrated and angry and upset and not able to really do what we want to do and not able to move forward and still not able to really move out of the past few years, the challenges of the past few years that we've been trying to for a while. That then leads me now to the last alignment I think I'm going to mention. And that's going to be Jupiter. We've got Jupiter here in the sign of Cancer, making a square over to Chiron in the sign of Aries. Now, how do I want to feel about this? I mean, this is, I'm going to interpret this both ways, maybe a bit of a challenge and a bit of a positive, and I think I'm going to use it to give you some advice as well. And a little bit of a challenge because it is a square at the end of the day. It is Chiron as well. Which are both challenging things. But I'm going to also give you a positive because it's Jupiter in Cancer. Jupiter is the planet of gifts and good luck, and it's exalted in Cancer where it loves to be more than anywhere else. So I'm going to use it to give you both a challenge and an advice. Okay, what is the challenge that might be going on? Well, both Cancer and Aries are cardinal signs. Okay, cardinal signs change directions of things, right? They start new things because they start seasons. The signs, they start a new seasons, and they literally change the direction that the circle is going. So they start new things. And if this is bringing a pain around the cardinal signs, this can indicate we're not feeling like our life is changing. We're not feeling like our life is going in the different direction that we really want it to be going in, or been trying to get it to go in since 2020. That can feel very uncomfortable and can feel very triggering. And maybe Jupiter, being a very big planet, can exacerbate some of the triggers, Chiron, around what's going on around us, not feeling like we're moving forward or making the progress. Maybe it can also make us feel, insecure, ungrounded, right? Cancer has to do with the grounding, grounded, safe, secure, maybe not feeling as safe and secure as we might like. But even though it can bring that, I think I'm going to also interpret it positively, because I think that Jupiter square Chiron can also bring something good as well. Again, with Jupiter being exalted here on the planet of gifts and good luck. And I think it can also bring, not at first, I think that we're going to have to choose to cultivate this. Because if you can see, this is a difficult eclipse. I think we're going to have to choose to do it. But I think that it can bring something good. Jupiter is about wisdom and understanding. Chiron is about our pains, our triggers, our insecurities, especially around this new way of life being in Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, and these new behaviors being a Mars ruled sign. So this can also bring wisdom and understanding around what the new behaviors are that are needed to move into a new experience, around why we're so afraid or scared of it. Not only can it bring understanding as well, but I think that Jupiter too can also bring something good there when it comes to that, right? Something good when it comes to these new behaviors and grounding them. Cancer, again, has to do with becoming more firm foundation towards something. And I think the way that it can bring something good is by honoring the emotions, Cancer, right? The nurturing our emotions, which is what Cancer is a lot about. And about going inwards, kind of deep into our emotions and the fears, because Cancer is a lot about safety, right? And with safety, there comes fears, to really understand the fears and to work through them and to face them head on, so to speak, and kind of come out on the other side. So I think that there is that potential, not at the beginning of this energy and not the main focus of the energy, but I think there is a potential as we move away towards the exact date of this eclipse and of course into the full moon in Aries coming next, to start to understand what the fears and the triggers are, and to look the fears and the triggers in the face with the Chiron, and to not let them get the best of us, and to become more grounded, Cancer, more firm, stronger within ourselves, a more firm foundation within this different approach, and to honor that, right? Cancer is an emotion, just like Pisces, a water sign, to honor and to honor more of our emotions in that way. And that really is the advice. The advice is to consciously choose, because this might not be the most natural thing to occur, to consciously choose to face your fears around taking a leap of faith and acting in different ways that are based more on your passions, and to consciously choose to honor more of your emotions and to hone in more on that and what your emotions are telling you, and to nurture your emotions, because I think that's really what needs to happen to get you to where you need to go. And because I think there is support there if you just choose. And maybe that's another thought. It's like once you start to make that choice, I think it's going to get easier and easier, right? The first choice to say I'm going to face my fears, or I'm going to feel the fear and do it anyways, and do the faith anyways, might feel hard at first. But the minute you start to make the choice to say I'm afraid of taking a leap of faith, but I'm going to do it anyways and see what happens, the more you do that, the easier it's going to get after that point. Because you're kind of taking a stand, and Jupiter is going to help you out. And also too, I need to note, because Mars in the day or so after this eclipse is going to enter the sign of Scorpio. It's going to leave Libra and enter the sign of Scorpio. And, that to me is a good thing, because Mars doesn't like to be in Libra, but it to me likes to be in Scorpio, because Scorpio used to be Mars used to be the ruler of Scorpio before Pluto was discovered. So I consider Mars to have an affinity for Scorpio, and Mars is about action, and Scorpio is about our subconscious. It also is about our fears, facing our fears. To me, Scorpio can also be very courageous, especially with Mars. They're the planet of courage. Scorpio too is about change and transformation in our actions, Mars, and doing things differently. So it may feel a little hard to consciously choose to face your fear and have faith anyways and stop with the logic. But once you make that hard choice, and in opposition too, right? The eclipse is making oppositions, which are about choices. Once you make that choice, then all of a sudden things are going to get easier, and you're going to find that there's a wellspring of courage within you that maybe you hadn't tapped into before, that's going to propel you forwards in the way that it is that you need there. Okay, so I think that's it. I think that's all I'm going to say. Because of that, I'm just going to repeat that now one last time without the jargon before we move on to some other things. So let me do that. What I think is going on at this new moon solar eclipse in Virgo is that we're trying to remain in faith and trust that things are going to get better in our lives, and continue taking leaps of faith based on emotion and intuition in order to improve our lives and make it better. That's what we're trying to do. But even though we're trying to do that, we're really struggling to stay in faith and trust and all of that. And we're really struggling because we're stuck in logic and pragmatism and overwork and worry and anxiety, because it doesn't make logical sense that like faith and trust, or a big leap of faith that doesn't make logical sense, is going to work, which is making us feel very stuck and frustrated and not where we want to be. And the reason why we're still stuck in these habits is because they just feel safer, and it's scary to take a leap in the unknown. And because we're feeling stuck and in these behaviors that are not helpful for our situation, we then are feeling like our situation isn't moving, it's not adjusting in the way that it is that we need to be. And from that frustration, we're beginning to realize consciously that it's the logic and the intellect that needs to go, and that we need to get rid of that. But actually doing that and getting rid of these habits is easier said than done. And it's easier said than done, because doing it is then going to bring up a lot of confusion about who we are, and it's going to kind of bring us into a giant unknown that is hard to accept. So it's hard for us to actually do the releasing of this thing. And on top of that, there may be some unexpected news events, especially with relationships and money and thoughts and ideas coming up, that could also overwhelm you and make you feel challenged and make you feel even more fear and anxiety, and throw you back even more into these same behaviors, logic, intellect, overwork, all of that, that you know you need to escape, which can then add insult to injury and make you feel even more triggered, even more raw and vulnerable and upset and stuck, and maybe even angry at yourself and others. That can be very, very hard. But even though that's hard, what needs to happen now, is the advice, is we need to make a conscious choice to continue having faith anyways, and taking leaps of faith, even if it's scary, right? To feel the fear and do it anyways, and to try our best to nurture our emotions and work through our fears in the process. Because the more that we keep taking leaps of faith, even if it's scary, the easier it's going to get. And not only is the easier it's going to get, but the more things in your life are going to change for the better and positive ways to get you to some different place of life you've been trying to get to since 2020. Okay. And that's it. Hey, because that's all I'm going to say in terms of the specific aspects, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to talk more, obviously, about this solar eclipse in Virgo, but I'm going to talk about it in a more conversational way. And I'm going to talk about it in a more conversational way because sometimes it allows me to be a little bit more intuitive or to sense more of your needs and answer more of your questions, as to where when I go through the aspects, I'm kind of beholden to, a certain way of saying things there. So I'm going to try to do that now. What do I want to start with? All right, maybe let me connect this back to the last full moon really quickly. I kind of like to connect everything's connected, in my worldview. So I want to connect things back to that to kind of show you where we are. Last full moon, which was a lunar eclipse in Pisces 2 weeks ago, I said we took a big leap of faith, right? We took a big leap of faith to do something that did not make logical sense. Okay, or needed to take one in order to improve our lives. That was kind of a risk. It was like a big risk that we kind of needed to take. And I think many of us did start to take that 2 weeks ago at that lunar eclipse in Pisces. And I think what's happening now at the solar eclipse in Virgo is that either we have already taken the leap of faith and now we're scared and we're stopping that leap of faith that we took and not doing anything more with it, or we're or if we were about to take a leap of faith, we're squashing any leap of faith altogether. I think that's what I might see happening there. So either to bring that together again, either we took a leap of faith 2 weeks ago and it got set in motion and it's happening, and now we're paralyzed in fear. Now we're paralyzed in fear with this leap of faith. And because of that, we're not doing anything, or we're worried and anxious and stagnating. Okay. Or we were about to take a leap of faith 2 weeks ago, but never really fully got there, never really fully got there to the leap of faith that we needed because of fear and logic and pragmatism causing us to restrict and feel stuck. So I think that's maybe the scenarios that I would see happening here. Okay. Is there anything else? Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to say. There's those scenarios. Okay. Why is it that we, maybe to bring that together, why is it that we either took the leap of faith and now are paralyzed and don't know what to do with it, or we're about to take a leap of faith and then stopped it before it even started? Why? Okay, the reason for that is fear. Okay, the reason for that is fear. Okay, and that we're afraid because taking a leap of faith is naturally scary, and it's naturally scary because it's uncertain, and because we don't know if it's going to work, and because it doesn't make logical sense, right? Does that make sense? It's easier to take an action if you know for sure it's going to work out. It's easier to take an action if you have a bunch of logical reasons or justifications about why you're doing it and why it's going to work. But it's harder to do an action if you're not sure if it's going to work, and if you don't have a good reason for it, you just are doing it based on a feeling. So the reason why this is happening is because we're afraid, because it doesn't feel safe and it doesn't feel comfortable to do these different behaviors in this leap of faith. Or if it does feel safe only for a short period, and then we get afraid again, that's happening. Okay. Not only do I want to note that there's what's going on, and this is why it's happening, but I also want to note as well that we have been trying to overcome this fear. If you've been watching my horoscopes for the past few months, especially around Leo season, that new moon in Leo, when Mercury went retrograde in Leo, we talked a lot about courage and overcoming fear when it comes to this. So if we overcame the fear there in Leo season and got the courage, why is it back now? Why is it back now? Well, a few thoughts on that. Having courage doesn't mean the absence of fear. Okay. Having courage doesn't mean the absence of fear, because if there's no fear, it's not courage. You're just doing what you normally do. Okay. Courage needs fear in order to be defined, in order to exist. So yeah, we got the courage in, August or so, Leo season, with the Mercury retrograde in Leo. But getting the courage doesn't mean that the fear goes away. It just means that we're more equipped to handle the fear and to move on. Not only do I want to note that, but I also want to note as well that there's a lot of things in the chart happening at 29 degrees. Okay, the new moon in Virgo itself. We've also got Mars in Libra at 29 degrees, and Saturn is at 28 degrees, but very close to the 29th degree. The 29 degrees are degrees of mastery, and in my opinion, when you master something, there's a test, right? I mean, how can you consider yourself a master if you haven't been through it all and experienced a lot of these things? And I think that this eclipse is also a test to say you thought you got the courage to move forward in this different way a month or so ago, but did you really? Did you really get the courage, or are you just pretending? Or did you just get it a little bit? Are you still a novice when it comes to courage, or do you need to master it more in order to move forward? And can you put your can you walk the talk? So I think there's also a lot of a test here of, can you take a leap of faith and be afraid and still not fall back into old habits and old patterns and old behaviors? Can you take a leap of faith, be afraid, and still continue on in this different way and in this different direction, even if it's scary and even if the result is unknown about what it's going to bring? And that's a big test going on here. Another thought on that too is that that's why there's kind of like a big mess going on. Remember, I said in this horoscope, there's something unexpected that may come up at this eclipse that's challenging, unexpected news, thought, idea that may throw us back. And I feel like it's this unexpected thing coming up to challenge you, to test you. That's the test. That's the test to say, not only can you keep doing this leap of faith, even when it's afraid, okay, and continue with it if you're a true master, but not only can you keep with this leap of faith, even if when it doesn't make logical sense, but can you keep this leap of faith, not only if it doesn't make sense, but also if something unexpectedly challenging is going on at the same time. So I think there's a little bit of that. It's maybe a little bit of both to say it. It's can you stay in faith when you're afraid and when it doesn't make sense? And also, can you stay in faith when bad things or when unexpected challenging things are coming up that also feel hard? It's both of those, right? It's one thing to have to stay in faith when everything's somewhat okay, but it's still, you're uncertain. It's another thing to have to stay in faith when you feel like things are kind of falling apart a little. So I want to say, I think it's a matter of both going on, which is adding insult to injury and is also a part of the test, right? Usually the last test is the hardest one, right? When you're in it, usually the test for the masters is going to be a very hard test that a novice wouldn't be able to pass. So there's got to be a harder test here. So I think there's something along those lines that's happening here. Can you stay in faith, not only when it seems scary and when the answer's unclear, but also when everything else seems to be falling apart around you or just not going a part of the plan, the way you thought it should go? Can you stay in that place of trust and surrender that's needed? Okay. Now, can we do it? Will we do it? I think that the answer is yes, in my opinion. Maybe not at this solar eclipse in Virgo, but I think the answer in a longer term is yes, because the next moon after this is going to be that full moon in Aries. Aries is all about courage. It's all about courage. Full moons can bring that more fully. Saturn is also going to go back into Aries at some point, right? February or March of next year. So the answer is yes. We do have the courage, and a lot of you are going to get the courage and are going to move forward, okay, and be fine, especially as we get to that full moon in Aries. But that there's a test now that's testing your courage. It's testing your faith. It's testing your ability to persevere. That is happening, and to keep that in mind. So on the long term, I'm very hopeful that a lot of you are going to beat this and be fine, but in the short term, it might feel a little bit hard. Not only do I want to note that, but other things I want to note too, I guess to put it in a bigger context, is it's this leap of faith, and I've mentioned this in the last video, it's this leap of faith that is going to help us to end the difficult experiences in 2020 that we were trying to escape, and to end that permanently, and to get into a different experience. It's this leap of faith that's going to do it. Okay. and or leaps of faith, right? Plural, could be multiple. It's these leaps of faith over the course of the next few months that are going to do it. Okay. And that if we don't do these leaps of faith, then we're going to stay stuck in the old experiences. So I also want to note that as well, that these leaps of faith are super important, that we do these and we continue with these, because they're the only thing that's going to get us unstuck. And if we stop now, right, because there's something about this solar eclipse in Virgo that's challenging us with the leap of faith. It's making us want to constrict and stop taking it. If we stop now, we're not going to get to really where we need to be, you know, because there's some things that need to be done fully and completely. And that's another thing with the 29 degrees, you know, 29, at the Saturn at the 28th, is there something that needs to be done fully, right? The 29th is like the fruition of the sign, the last degree, you know, there's something that needs to be done more fully. We can't stop at a little bit of a leap of faith. We can't stop only at one leap of faith or whatever. We need to do the whole thing, because if you stop now, you're not going to get to where you need to be. So that's the other thought there, because there may be some of you who maybe watched my video like last full moon and are like, I took a leap of faith when nothing's happening. And it's like, well, it's because you need to take more, and you need to do more with the faith, and you can't stop now. And there may be some people, right, a few months from now who are like, I'm still stuck. And it's like, you have to take a leap of faith, and you have to do it to a full extent, not just a little bit, not when it's convenient, not when it feels easy. There's a lot more that needs to be done. More faith, more actions taken based on faith. Because this is going to get you out of the past and hard things and into a different and better experience. Why is that? I've said this before in other videos, many other videos, but I'm going to say it again here. Why is the faith necessary? Because the old life that we're trying to escape since 2020, okay, if you've been following me for that long, was the reason why we didn't like that life is because it was based too much on tradition, on what we thought we should do to behave or to be respectable, on what other people thought. It was based more on pragmatism. It was based more on seriousness and rigidity, because Pluto was in Capricorn a lot during that time, and that's where the Saturn-Pluto conjunction was, okay? And that created the life that we didn't like, that we wanted to get out of, because our life was based on what we thought we should do instead of what we really wanted to do. It was based on what we thought other people thought was respectable instead of what really made us respect ourselves. It was based on what we thought was realistic and pragmatic instead of what really made us feel emotionally fulfilled within ourselves. So that's the way we were behaving for many years prior to this, that created the life we did not like, that we were trying to escape in 2020, right? And those behaviors are not about taking a leap of faith. Do you understand? They're not about following our heart, and they're not about following our emotions, and they're not about following our passion. And so, and I don't know if I'm going in if I'm saying it in the right way here, but because maybe hold on, let me back up. Because that's what we were doing, and because those behaviors that were too structured and pragmatic and traditional kept us stuck, we now need to behave in different ways if we want to get out of that, right? So I'm hoping you're understanding. If you want something different in life, you have to do something different. You can't do the same thing and expect to get a different result, okay? And in the past, many years of our lives, we were being too structured, too practical, too traditional, too doing what everyone else wanted us to do because we thought we should do it. That created a life that kept us stuck, that we didn't like. And now we need to do different behaviors, right? And the different behaviors that are different than what we were doing are behaviors that are more Aries. I sometimes put Pisces into that too, are based more on passion, are based more on emotion, on instinct, on our individual needs, and on our intuition, okay? Because they're different behaviors, right? The old life was based on structure, seriousness, what we think we should do. The new life is meant to be one based on passion and excitement and what you want to do because you like doing it, and on your emotion, so that you're no longer ignoring that. And acting on passion and emotion is by nature a little risky. is by nature a little risky, especially if you want to contrast it to the old behaviors that we had. Because when you're acting on emotion, it doesn't make logical sense. It isn't always practical or realistic. So I'm trying to make some connections here is that, first of all, maybe I'll say that, first of all, acting on passion and our individual needs and our emotion is inherently risky because it doesn't make logical sense and inherently requires a leap of faith because we don't know if other people are going to like it and we're doing it for us. Okay. It inherently is a leap, and it also inherently is a leap of faith, especially in contrast to our old behaviors. The old behaviors were pragmatic, were what we think we should do. That's not based on faith at all. That's based on what everyone else is doing, what we should do, what's been tried and true. So there's something about the leap of faith, to come back to that, that's highly necessary. That's the only way you're going to get to where you need to go. There's no way around it. And you can't just do half a leap of faith. You have to go all the way, and you have to do all of it, and you have to do multiple, and you have to keep on doing it until you found your way out of this mess or out of whatever it was that you didn't like. You have to keep doing it and keep trying it, because this leap of faith is what is different from the old behaviors, is part of what is different from the old behaviors. And if you want to get something different, you have to do something you've never done before. Okay. Otherwise, you're just going to keep recreating the same stuff over and over again that you didn't like, that you've been trying to escape. So I hope that that's clear. Okay, I hope that that's clear. We took a leap of faith, started 2 weeks ago, but either we got scared and backed off it, or got scared and never started it to begin with. Mostly, right, because of fear, which threw us back into a lot of old habits and patterns of overthinking, over controlling the situation, worry, doubt, logic, and pragmatism, which is making us feel just very stuck and frustrated, that we now need to overcome. And the reason why this is happening now is to test us. Have we really gotten the courage? Have we really learned our lessons? Have we really gotten the courage to overcome this stuff and to move forward in this different way, no matter what it takes? Or are we going to keep letting old things trip us up? Are we going to keep falling backwards into old things? So it's really to test us. I think a lot of people are going to pass the test. Especially around that full moon in Aries, and continue with the leap of faith. And the more you continue with the leap of faith and do more of them, the more things are going to improve in your life, because it's these behaviors that are going to get us into a different experience, because they're different than what we were doing before. And if you want a different experience of life, you got to do different things and not the same things that are going to recreate the old stuff you didn't like. Okay. So I hope that's clear there. Anything else that I want to mention? Sure, there a little bit of a stuck energy. Okay, I want to just point that out, because I have gotten a few people in the comments over the course of the past few months saying, I'm not moving forward quite yet into a new experience, and you're saying that things are starting to get better. And I'm not. Well, this eclipse in Virgo is definitely a stuck energy. So there's this feeling of like stop, start, stop, start, or start, stop, start, stop. So at the full moon in Capricorn, maybe around July, we kind of felt like we were making progress to move into a different and better experience of life. Then all of a sudden July came, we felt like we were taking a step backwards. Okay, going backwards wasn't working. Then all of a sudden we tried to take a step forward in that eclipse in Pisces 2 weeks ago, September. And then now all of a sudden we feel like we're taking a step back. It's like the 2 steps forward, 3 steps back thing kind of going on here now. Okay. And that's because that is what's happening. Okay. And we got to stop this back and forth. We got to go all in on the leap of faith, okay, which I think is going to happen around that full moon in Aries 2 weeks from now. So keep that in mind. If you're feeling stuck at this eclipse in Virgo, well, that's where you should be. Well, yeah, that's what's going on. Another thing that I want to note as well about that is that a lot of the energy is bottlenecking around the Virgo stuff. It's bottlenecking around that. And I think that once we release a lot of the Virgo stuff, the overthinking, the overplanning, the overcontrolling, the details, then things are going to pick up the speed a little bit more. They're going to, right? And Mars moves into Scorpio out of Libra. Things are going to pick up the speed a little bit more. And I think we'll gradually pick up speed after that point until February of March to get you to where you need to go. So there's still a stop, start, slow energy. Once you resolve this, you're going to start to get more and more momentum gradually, little at a time, up to getting to where you want to be, which is next March. Okay. And next March is when I think we're more fully going to be in a different and better experience of life. Okay. But you have to, right? But you have to stop with the logic and you have to keep having these leaps of faith, right? And those are the things that's stopping us, is the logic, the pragmatism, the needing to control and always know what's going to happen and all the answers, and the overworking in our situation. Okay. And we're stuck in those things because we're afraid of the fear, and because that's what's comfortable. Maybe that's another thought. The overworking and the overplanning feels comfortable because that's more of what we're used to. The old chapter of life from before 2020 was a lot about tradition and responsibility and doing what we think we should do. Well, that makes more logical sense, sometimes. So it's connected. We're scared to do the new, and these old behaviors feel more comfortable based on what we've been through. Okay, so I think that's what I'm going to say there. I don't think I have anything else to really add. Do I want to give some examples? Sure, maybe I'll give a few examples. Maybe what happened last full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces 2 weeks ago. Maybe this was a home situation. Maybe some of you decided to, or got the idea to take some sort of leap of faith with your home to move unexpectedly, radically to some very different location, just on a whim, that you felt very passionate about. And maybe what is now going on at this solar eclipse in Virgo is that you maybe never let yourself fully follow through on that idea to move home. You had the idea unexpectedly to do it, but you're not following through on that, and you're still staying at the place you don't want to be in anymore because you're feeling like it doesn't make logical sense to move forward into this different place. And then there may be some unexpected challenges coming up at your current home that you didn't like and wanted to leave anyways. If it's not happening that way, then maybe some of you got this crazy idea to move home at the last eclipse to some crazy new place. And then maybe you actually took the leap of faith and you started making the moves and finding a new place and packing up. And you're in the process of that. And then what can happen at this eclipse is that something unexpected could come up to challenge that, to challenge this move. Maybe it's an issue with the movers. Maybe it's an added expense or something that comes up that then may make you restrict and say, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't take this move. Maybe I should stop. Maybe I shouldn't do this, and to kind of hold back instead of going all the way in more and continuing with the leaps of faith on that. Okay, what else? Maybe if this isn't that, maybe this is a job thing. Maybe some of you got an idea at the eclipse 2 weeks ago to leave your job or to change your job to get into a very different type of job or career. And maybe what happened is that you never actually took that leap of faith. You had the idea 2 weeks ago, but you never actually took it. And so now you're feeling stuck. And not only that, but an unexpected thing may come up at work as well, where either something goes on at work that makes your situation there more unenjoyable, or maybe you lose the job anyways, you were thinking of quitting, that forces you, right? So there could also be something there that's going on that's making you feel stuck because you're not taking the leap of faith you really needed to take. Okay, if not that, then the way that it could be is that you were thinking about leaving your job or changing your job significantly 2 weeks ago. You then did it and you took the leap of faith to do it. But then maybe now there's something unexpected coming up at your new job that you took, or with the plans for the new job, that's making you doubt what you did, doubt the leap of faith that you took. That's making you feel very triggered, right? That you need to stay in faith that what you did is the right thing or going to work. Okay, maybe this is a relationship thing. Maybe there was a relationship that, some insight that you got 2 weeks ago at that eclipse about a relationship maybe that you wanted to end. Let's go there. I think there's more of like an ending of relationships going on, more so than coming together. But maybe there's some relationship that you got an insight to end 2 weeks ago or whatever. Maybe you were going to end the relationship and then maybe you got scared and you didn't do it. And now you're frustrated at this eclipse, and then maybe there's an unexpected argument that comes up with that relationship that you wanted to end but you didn't end, that now makes everything more chaotic. Okay, throws you back into worry, anxiety, all of that. Or it could be differently. Maybe there was a relationship that you wanted to end 2 weeks ago. Maybe you did end it. Okay, But maybe now you're starting to doubt whether or not you should have ended the relationship or whether or not it was the right thing. And then maybe there's something unexpected coming up in your own life that makes you feel alone and wanting the relationship, or maybe something unexpected comes up with the relationship that triggers you back into the old feelings that you had. That could be a little bit of a challenge or a crisis here, a test that you're going to need to work through, and to stay in faith with some change that you're making with the relationship to kind of end it, right? To continue in that way. Or it could be the other way, where you're getting into a relationship. I feel like this is more endings with, again, everything's to the 29th degree. This is more like ending. So you got to cut the ties with all this stuff. But if it is a new relationship, maybe there's a new relationship that some of you wanted to get into with someone that you're kind of interested in. And maybe you got the insight to kind of take a leap of faith to ask someone out or something. Well, maybe what happened is you never did it. And so now with this solar eclipse in Virgo, you're frustrated that you didn't do it. And maybe something unexpected comes up. Maybe you realize the person is going out with someone else and that you missed your chance, so there could be some kind of unexpected thing there. That could be very challenging, that you're going to have to stay in faith, that maybe this person is still available, or that maybe there's another person. Okay. Or it could be a situation where you took the leap of faith to ask this person out, and maybe it went okay, but then all of a sudden now there's an unexpected thing coming up with this person, where now you are not on the same page about some things that may then throw you back into worry that you're just going to have to remain in hope and faith about when it comes to your situation. Okay. So it could be something like that. Maybe this is a health situation. Maybe there was something with your health that you got an idea to do to improve your situation 2 weeks ago. And maybe you kind of took kind of a leap of faith to do some kind of health treatment. And maybe something has come up unexpectedly with the health treatment that makes you feel like you're set back, that you're worried about. Okay, that you're going to need to stay in faith, that everything's going to be okay. Or maybe you had some idea with the health situation, some idea to take a leap of faith 2 weeks ago with your health. Maybe you never took it. Maybe now your health is getting worse, so it could be something like that. That's frustrating. Not only that, what else do I want to say? Maybe there is a thought, maybe another way this could go, and this is more general than the specifics I was giving you, but maybe some of you took a leap of faith 2 weeks ago or whatever, and maybe it just didn't work out. And so now you're losing the hope and faith as well. It can also lead to that of like, I took a leap of faith, it didn't work out. So now no leap of faith is ever going to work out. And now I need to go back to what I was doing before with the overthinking and the over logic. It can also throw you back into that as well, when you need to be staying in more acts of faith and more hope instead of stifling it. So that's also another way that it could play out as well, right? Just because you get turned down once doesn't mean that nothing's ever going to work after this point. It means that you just got to keep trying and hoping and having faith until something does work, and until the opportunity does come that it is that you need, right? And that's the point of having hope and faith, is that you have hope and faith even when it doesn't seem like it's logically going to work, and like, which is kind of like a meta way to think of it. It's not like you have to have hope and faith around situations that don't seem logical, but you have to keep having hope and faith even when hope and faith doesn't seem logical, even when hope and faith doesn't seem like it's going to be working out, because some of you may also be losing faith and faith, hope and hope, and it's like you have to keep in around that as well, because some of you might, and I think I did see someone who wrote this in one of the comments on my last video, is like, I've been trying to have hope and faith for so long and everything that I've done hasn't worked. And if that's you, the answer to this energy is not like, oh, well, forget hope and faith then. You've tried having hope and faith and nothing's worked, so must be something wrong with hope and faith. Don't have hope and faith. No, the answer to that is, okay, you tried a bunch of stuff that didn't work. Keep trying things. Keep having hope and faith. And because that's going to get you out of it. And just because, nothing worked in the past doesn't mean that nothing's going to work in the future. And that's part of Pisces. Pisces does, where the North Node is and where Saturn is, Pisces has to do with hope and faith, yes, but it also has to do with magic and miracles. And, sometimes what makes something a miracle is that time that you didn't think it was going to work, that everything didn't work, and then all of a sudden this one thing did, so if that's you and you're feeling like hope and faith and trusting hasn't worked, it's not because it's not going to work. It's not because, and it's not that you need to stop that. It's that you need to continue with it more. And sometimes it's just a matter of staying in that faith. And maybe another thought, right? Because we talked a bit in this section about testing. Maybe the reason why you took some leaps of faith in the past and it didn't work was to test how much faith you really have. If you only have a little bit of faith, it's going to go away. You're going to do one thing and then get scared. But if you have a lot of faith, you'll continue on with it. Just kind of like I was just had an image of my head of like a can of like fire, and when there's a small fire, like a candle, and you blow air on it, it goes out. But if you have a big fire, like a bonfire, and there's a big wind, it makes it even bigger. So if your faith is small, like a candle, the little bit of challenge is going to blow it out. But if your faith is big, like a fire, the minute something challenging happens, it's going to fuel your faith even more. So I think there's a need to have more and more faith. And the reason why your acts of faith didn't work out before is not to discourage you from taking acts of faith. It's to increase your faith. It's to give you more determination to have faith and to keep trying more things to see what works. Okay. And to bring you to the edges and the limits of that, because it's not faith if you keep needing proof. It's not faith if you keep needing logic and answers and certainty over and over again in order to stay in faith. It's like there needs to be more of the faith there. Okay? And you need to fundamentally change the way you think, the Virgo, and go about things in order to have more of that. All right. I think that's all I'm going to say there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at your insight degrees. So let's look at that. The insight degrees were not written by me. They were written by someone else named Elias Lonsdale, who channeled the meanings of each of the degrees from Spirit. Fun fact, I believe that Elias Lonsdale finished these inside degrees in 1988, which is the year I was born, which is when the North Node was last in Pisces. No, not last in Pisces. The North Node has been in Pisces since then, excuse me. But was a year that the North Node was in Pisces. So a lot going on there. And my North Node is at 18 degrees Pisces, where the North Node is now. So we're just all the Pisces stuff over here. But anyways, we're going to look back at the Virgo now. This eclipse is at 29 degrees Virgo. But I believe that the planets are in motion. So I believe the degrees before, of, and after can all be relevant. So we're going to look at that. I've got it up on the screen. I'm going to start here with 28 degrees Virgo to hopefully give you more insight about this eclipse. All right. It says, the mind is a funny thing. It pores over experience with a fine-tooth comb, yet only sees what it expected to see. The mind programs itself, indoctrinates itself thoroughly and intensively in the fine art of imposing the familiar and the assumed upon all of life. Okay, this degree, to me so far, talks a lot about the mind and the intellect and the shortcomings of that. If you only operate from the mind, without intuition, without faith, without emotion, if you only operate from the mind, you have a lot of blind spots. There are certain things you can't see. There are certain things you can't know. There are certain things that you're limited by. Okay, mind is limiting. It only sees what it thinks it's going to see. Okay. And really speaks to the problems of that, which again is what we've been talking about. The logical mind is going to keep you stuck here. Okay. It says this is a maddening way to operate, yet it does not register as being so. Okay. So there's another thought. Okay. The mind is naturally has limitations. Okay. Because not everything can be described and not everything can be rationalized by the mind, right? Like, maybe we should linger on that. Why are we here? How do humans exist? Do we really exist? Is this all a dream? There's some things we're just never going to logically know the answers to. And when you only think about things from a logical way, you miss out on so much. And then it goes on to say as well, when you're in the mind, it does not register as being so. And that's the interesting thing that I think this degree is saying, is that sometimes the mind can fool itself. There's this thought of like, oh, I'm just being rational. I'm just being logical, that it doesn't make space for the other side of life. Not only am I getting some of that, but I'm getting that maybe there's some of you that prior to this point, I think there is an awareness coming at this eclipse, but maybe prior to this eclipse, some of you have not seen just how much you've been too much in the logical mind that's been keeping you stuck, and that there's a need to bring awareness to that. Okay. the logical mind being pragmatic and realistic is keeping you stuck because not everything can be explained away. And maybe you didn't see it before, but now you have to start to realize that it's that pattern that's what's holding you back. Okay. And let's read on. It says, instead, you like it this way, being two in the mind, prefer it, advocate it, simply because it is self-reinforcing and self-perpetuating. You are after elaborate confirmations and validations that the little self is perfectly splendid just as it is. And you will be sure to get these. Okay. This is the logical mind feeling justified in and of itself. And I mentioned this in the last video. Maybe I kind of said it a little too soon in the last video, but there's a lot of you who are using logic and reason and pragmatism as an excuse for not doing things. And you think you're justified in it, and that's the way it is. You're saying, oh, I can't move. I don't have the money. It's not realistic. It's not logical. Oh, I can't change jobs because I'm never going to get a job in this different field. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical, right? A lot of you are not doing the one thing that is going to fix your situation because it doesn't make logical sense. And you think you're justified in that. And you're not seeing that that's the problem. And that's what's keeping you stuck. And now you need to get rid of that. So that's a very real thing. There are some people who think that the logic is what's keeping them safe when it's the logic that's actually getting you unsafe. It's the logic that's actually making your situation more tenuous. Okay, it says the transaction is guaranteed, but there is an unknown self who cannot breathe in this atmosphere and who knocks at the door seeking entry and is not very pleased to be tuned out and pushed away and told that we, as fine as we are and do not need to be stirred up by the voice of the rest of existence. So not only does this degree say to me that there's an over-reliance on the mind and what's logical, that is the problem, that self-perpetuating, that is making us forget the other side of life that's more emotional, intuitive, and think that we're justified in being logical and forgetting that other side. But that the more we're focusing on the logic instead of the other side of life, we're feeling more and more stuck. We're feeling more and more stifled, right? Cannot breathe. We're feeling more tuned out, pushed away, not where we want to be. That is hard. So I don't know if that adds too much to what I've already said, other than that the logic is the big problem here, stopping you from doing the things that you need to do. And some of you think you're justified in not doing these things because it doesn't logically make sense. And the more that you stay in the logic, the more you're going to be stuck and the more you're not going to get to where you need to go. And you're more frustrated you're going to feel, which is what's happening. Okay. Let's read on. 29 degrees Virgo, which is the actual degree of the eclipse. It says, within the delicate formative stages of major departures into the unknown, there is encountered an extraordinary task and lesson that detains you a long while. Okay. Maybe let's stop there. What is the extraordinary task and lesson that detains you a long while? I think the extraordinary task and lesson that we've been trying to learn, especially this year, is to stop with the logic, clearly, as we stated in the Virgo 28, is to stop with the logic and to realize that there are other things to life that we just don't have the answers to, that we need to trust our intuition on, that we need to trust our emotion on, that we need to go with the magic of. Okay? That's the lesson, is we have to get out of this logical mindset and into more of the magic of it. It becomes self-evident that it is everything that becomes before that makes the difference. There must be a fully attuned magical sensibility to make the future possible. Okay, so here we are. It's not just logic that we need. We also need a magical sensibility or magical thinking as well in order to help us. Okay, because not everything in life can be explained logically. Okay. It says, coming to this realization about the magical sensibility requires arduous discipline and elaborate ritual, internal initiation. This becomes such a labyrinth of discipleship and apprenticeship that you wander through the maze, discovering everything you ever needed to know. All is played out within. Okay, so it does, to me, indicate that it's not as easy as it sounds to let go of the logic and to have more hope and faith. That's going on, but that's needed. Okay, let's read on. It says, all is played out within. There's no need to make anything happen on the outer. You're assigned to empty yourself out, to strip everything away, to become invisible. I do like this. This to me indicates that most of the work that needs to be done to improve our lives is not hard work. It's not in the physical, that most of it is internal and the emotional. Okay. And that once you adjust your perspective to be based more on magic and hope and faith instead of logic and pragmatism, everything else is going to be easy after that. You know, that the hardest thing about this energy is not what you have to do, is not the doing, the moving, the fixing, the arranging. The hardest thing is adjusting yourself emotionally and internally to believe that the magic and miracles are possible and to allow yourself to go towards that. And once that happens, everything else is going to be easier and faster. Right? And let's read on. It says, and if you excel at your craft, which I think is to change your inner world, to also believe in the other side of life, emotions, intuition, so many ventures and initiatives will be seeded. And this inner plane's total mobilization will prove to be more fruitful and productive than any premature thrusts of outer mind, no matter how impressive or seemingly necessary. The entire path lies well within and needs no surface success to substantiate itself. Okay, so it's saying if you allow yourself to go more with this magical sensibility, the hope and the faith, and if you excel at it, master it, right? Excel to me is a sense of mastery. So many good things are going to happen. So many ventures and initiatives will be seeded. Seed means begin. Well, new things will begin. Okay, and they'll be so fruitful. Look at this. We'll be more fruitful and productive. They'll be so fruitful and productive. And then it says, than any premature thrust, than anything we've done before. Say since 2020, they'll be more fruitful and productive than anything we've done before. Okay. Not only does it say it'll be more fruitful and productive than anything we've done before, but then than anything the mind can think up. Anything the mind can think of, it's going to be more productive and fruitful than that. Because when you do things from a place of spiritual awareness, when you do things from a place of true, authentic awareness of yourself, things are built on a stronger foundation. They're more likely to last. Okay. So there's also that too. Sometimes we think, oh, if I do things logically, it's going to last more. And it's like, no, life isn't always about logic. Sometimes the things that we can't see are more enduring than the things we can see, you know, so there's also a note there on that. Okay. I also like the last sentence it says about it needs no surface success to substantiate itself, because right now we're not seeing proof. That's another thought. Right now with the energy, we're not seeing proof that our leaps of faith are working yet. And if we are, it's just a little, right? Because there needs to be more. We're not seeing the full proof that our leaps of faith are working. And we need to continue to take leaps of faith, even if they haven't fully yielded the results left, because we should not need surface success to justify what we're doing. Okay. So that's another thought there too. Stop looking for things to manifest in the outer world as a result of what you're doing, because that really doesn't matter. You know, everything is within, and if you're aligned within, then the rest will come out eventually. And because a lot of the point of this new chapter in life is to live from the inside out, from what we feel, not from what we think we should feel to look good on the outside. All right, let's move on now to Virgo 30. It says, sacred geometry inscribes the pattern of the world going through its great shifts, its quantum leaps. If you learn to stand back and be within the greater archetypal motions, you find yourself being placed in perfect strategic positions and exquisitely rightful initiations and assignments. How positive is that? Okay, that if we are able to make this shift towards more hope and faith and magic, instead of purely relying on logic, we are going to experience quantum leaps, big leaps, okay? And we'll be placed in perfect strategic positions and exquisitely rightful initiations and assignments. I mean, come on here. Do you see? Could it not be more clear? You have to take these leaps of faith in order to get to a better place, and it's available to you if you do that. It says, the transparency of things is superlative to behold. You are called to serve the highest, to respect and honor all manifestations, to be there for everybody. Interior steadfastness and implacability, knowing the law, the code, the way. Magnificent in applying vaster awareness to life's particular detailed variations and the theme of how everything fits together perfectly and is woven by divine design. So this to me indicates that once we trust in the magic, the hope and faith, and go in that direction, not only are a lot of things in our life going to start to change and shift in very big ways and work out, but that we're going to have a more masterful, I think, approach to it, right? That everything's going to fit together perfectly. And I think this, to me, also indicates the past, because I think Virgo 28 says something about the past. This also indicates to me that we're going to realize that all our efforts from the past have not been forsaken, that all our efforts in the past actually led us to this point as well. So I think there's also a realization coming too, maybe not now, but over the course of the next few months, that all the failures we had or the things that didn't work out were actually very necessary to teach us things to get us to where we are. I think that's coming soon too, because I think there's some of you have heard that feel, bad about the past or what was the past for. before. Well, I think there's going to be a realization about that, and maybe not now, but coming as well. That will be positive. It says the fine-tuned sensibility of the master craftsman, right? There's the word master, particularly adept in staying modest, unadorned, and straight on. It is the exemplar of the way it is done when you know who you are and how things are around here, and when you see it coming through in every jeweled detail with a little lost in the translation. So a lot of good things coming on the other side, I believe, if you can just take that leap of faith. And you'll see all the efforts from the past 5 years finally pay off in very, very good ways with everything kind of fitting together. Yeah, and I do like that. I mean, Virgo, even though there's something with the South Node there about letting go of Virgo traits or changing Virgo traits, Virgo comes right before the harvest, right? And the sun's about to enter Libra, which is the autumn equinox, the first day of fall in the northern hemisphere, and fall's a lot about harvest. So it's like these signs are a lot about the harvesting, what we've been working on, and the things we've been working on coming to completion and fruition. So once we, I think, take that leap of faith that we are needing, and to take it more fully and more and more and more of them, then I think we're going to start to see more and more things finally start to come together over the course of the next few months, for real this time, for realsies. Okay, and that's it. Because that's all, I'm now going to pull your card and see what we've got there. So let me do that. Your card is the Queen of Swords upright. And we've got at the bottom of the deck, the Eight of Swords upright. Not surprising. We've got swords here with the Eclipse in Virgo, a Mercury ruled sign, which can keep us in the mind. So I'm getting there's a lot of mental energy that's going on at this time. To me, the Eight of Swords can indicate fear and anxiety, worry, maybe can indicate hesitation, being stuck, feeling like a victim of our circumstance, like things aren't going to get better, things aren't going to improve. She's also blindfolded. So this can also indicate a feeling of not only of like worry and anxiety, but of not knowing what the future holds, a lot being uncertain in your life, maybe being scared of that uncertainty. Maybe it's also like the faith. Faith requires not seeing, not knowing. Maybe it's like being scared of the leap of faith, especially because she kind of seems to be on this big rock she might need to leap off. So there's a lot of worry and anxiety around the leap of faith, fear, maybe feeling like a victim of life circumstance that is very hard, and just feeling like the future is unclear and uncertain. Another thought that actually just came to me that I don't think I've addressed is that this can also indicate that maybe some of you are confused about the leap of faith. Maybe some of you are like, okay, I get that there's a leap of faith, but I don't know what that leap of faith is entirely. And I want to say that that also is the nature of a leap of faith. Not only is the leap of faith that you don't know if the leap of faith is going to work out, but sometimes the nature of a leap of faith is that you don't even know if the leap of faith you're going to take is the right leap of faith, right? I think that's part of it. Sometimes when we take leaps of faith, we think that everything's got to be certain, right? But the whole nature of a leap of faith is that nothing is certain and nothing is known. Okay. And so to me, that can also indicate that. And if that's you and you're like, I don't even know what I should do. Should I do this or that, or what the leap of faith is? That's part of it. You have to do something, even if you don't quite know what that is, or if it's going to work, and try things. You have to try things, because doing nothing is going to keep you stuck, or doing what you've always done before is going to keep you stuck. You have to try to do something different. Okay. Because a lot of you are not going to have complete certainty about the leap of faith, not going to have complete certainty about what the leap of faith is and about whether or not it's going to work. And you have to try something anyways, because that's what a leap of faith is. I don't know if this is the right thing, but I'm going to do it and see, Okay. We've got the Queen of Swords. The Queen of Swords is a lot, I think, about kind of balancing the mind with intellect. So Queen of Swords to me is all about balancing intellect with emotion. And so maybe there's a thought of that, right? Because, I tend to interpret the South Node a lot of letting things go, but technically the South Noder is not entirely letting things go. It's like hard to impossibly let the South Node go. It's just, we need to adjust it greatly. So maybe for some of you, it's not entirely letting go of logic and pragmatism. It's just balancing it properly with emotion and magic and hope and faith and intuition, because some of you are not getting that balance right. So if you're thinking about it and you're like, well, it doesn't make sense for me to totally abandon logic and all of that, then I'm going to say with her here, that's fine. Don't totally abandon it, but you have to give magic, hope, and faith and intuition, emotion equal weight, which I do not think a lot of you are doing. and to rebalance things. And sometimes when you give something equal weight that you haven't given enough weight for a long time, it feels too much. It feels too much in that direction when really it's not. So there's a need for that. Not only is that the case, but sometimes the queens can be more nurturing. Maybe there's also a need to nurture yourself through this process if it is feeling scary, to try to be kind to yourself and do some self-care, whatever that is for you. Time to meditate or get a lot of sleep, or eating some good foods, or whatever it is, showers, whatever helps you, because that also might be a good thing as well. So I think that's what I'm getting here. Worry about the faith, uncertain about what comes next. And that's the point. The point of taking a leap of faith is that you do not know what's going to come next. And you need to do it anyways and nurture yourself through the process and not let the logic take over and prevent you from doing the things that need to be done. And I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was helpful. I wish you all the best. And I will talk to you 2 weeks from now at that next full moon in the sign of Aries.